Welcome to the Efani Features series, and my guest on this session is Paul from Optery. And so, Paul, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me. My name is Paul Mander, and I head up all of the B2B business here at Optery.
All right, awesome. So, for you to get to this position, can you just give us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in the position of being, not necessarily just B2B, but just in Optery in general?
Yeah, my background in my career has been mostly in B2B advertising technology and marketing technology. So I spent a lot of my career really learning how data traverses the internet and helping companies better use data for things like marketing and customer service. The flip side of that is over the years, the industry, I think it once started off, relatively innocent, like they were tracking clicks and stuff like that. They weren't really looking for people's personal data, but over the years kind of evolved and became a little darker with that. And, we see companies that are like tracking, selling people's names, address, and combining it with their clicks behavior and such. And, when the industry started turning that way and started seeing some things like GDPR and CCPA and understanding that, yeah, people, privacy matters to people and, governments and, people are starting to take notice. The CEO of Optery and I actually worked together back when we were in advertising technology. So when Optery was formed, I actually was an investor in Optery when the company originally started. And once the company was starting to invest in its B2B business, it was a time. I said, let's do this. Let's start helping people and companies with their privacy and security.
All right. Well, I think you're like you're perfect guest to have on the Efani Feature Show because Efani's we sell a secure mobile service, and
Yeah.
so in order to SIM swap people, you have to get the hackers have to get data on the people,
Right.
and so there's different ways they do it. They impersonate, they bribe, they have an insider, but impersonation is big. In order to impersonate, you have to have data on somebody, and it's not just SIM swaps; it's all kinds of data breaches and scams and
Right.
blackmail and things like that. And so, could you talk a little bit about Optery, what you guys do, just so the people that are watching know what Optery?
Yeah, Optery is a personal data removal service. So there's sites out there that are called data broker websites, and they sell things like your name, your address, your phone number, the information about your family members and relatives, and that it's just out for sale on the open internet. So what Optery does is we act as an authorized agent on people's behalf and submit opt-out requests to those data brokers to get people's personal data removed from those websites. So you mentioned, SIM swapping and cyber crimes such as that. You really have to find out information on that person in order to do that, right? And it's the interesting thing I hear a lot is that everyone's like, okay, well, my information's on the dark web. It's like, well, it might be there, but honestly, like your information's on the open web, which is a
Yeah,
much bigger risk than having your information on the dark web, right? So,
yeah,
we really help people get their information off those data broker websites on the open web to help protect their security and their privacy.
yeah. It's a have at this point. There's been so many data breaches that our personal data been stolen, collected voluntarily, involuntarily, legally, illegally, probably 10 times over. And in fact, I built a mobile number scan tool on our website at funny.com/number scan, where
Mhm.
you can check your mobile number. And so, one of my main mobile numbers, I have multiple numbers because I'm in the business, and just one number was in 9 different data breaches.
Wow.
And so, impossible for me to kind of hide myself. I can only do the best that I can do, which is using services like Optery and others, and so it's difficult to be private at this point.
Yeah, and it's not that you're probably more security minded than most people, right? It's not that you did something wrong. It's these threat actors and even the data brokers, which many of which are legit businesses, right? So I'm not going to label all of them, as threat actors or anything like. But they have different ways to get data. Like we've had tell us that they found their grandparents, great grandparents who have never been on the internet, never had a smartphone, passed away before all those things even became mainstream, and data brokers have that information, right? So what they'll do is they'll take legitimate data sources and or something like a government registry for like a fishing license. It's not something you can just get on the internet, but they make some information request, combine that with other data sources, and now make that publicly available. So yeah, there's just so many ways the data gets out there. So despite anyone's best efforts, your data is out there, and it's time to start playing offense and starting to get that off the internet.
Yeah, I'm sure there's web crawlers out there if like, obituaries are being put online and,
Yeah.
yearbooks and things like that. So yeah, they're going to connect. And that's why when somebody asked about a data deletion, do I sign up and just do one delete, one time delete, or do I have to sign up for, a long time? Yeah, you got to keep that's there looking for this information because it's going to be added back in at some point, and you just have to keep having it deleted.
Yeah, exactly. It's they don't really focus on like quality, right, or accuracy of the data. So, your name's Mark. Let's pretend your full name was Marcus, right? So they'll say, okay, Mark is one, Marcus is a second profile, even though it's the same other information. You might have opted Mark out, and they're like, oh, we found Marcus, so here's a new profile for Marcus, right? So they look at name variations, or even let's look at like CCPA, right? One of the best privacy laws in the strongest ones in the country right now. And in the CCPA, it says, hey, if you opt out one of these data brokers, the opt out is valid for 365 days. Well, you can guess what happens on day 366 is that the profile comes back, right? So certainly you need a service that is constantly scanning for that information, and as soon as it finds it, submitting the opt out requests on your behalf so that the information you minimize the amount of time that is exposed.
And for those that are watching, we're going to put a promo code. It'll be up above here. It'll pop in and out periodically. We are going to offer a discount off of Optery, and we'll do that a little bit later in the video. About almost 2 years ago, I was doing some studies on. I was doing some research on companies that were in the data deletions, and what I found is that some of them were headquartered overseas, or you couldn't find like who the executives were, or who even any of the employees were behind it. And so one of the reasons I like Optery is because that we've actually been able to get you on video calls, and
We
so that
exist.
so it's like you exist. We know who you are. Now we've been talking to Optery now for probably like 2.5, 3 years, and so we're here with Optery, and so one of the reasons why I wanted to have Optery on as our guest for data deletion, because you're the one that feel most with. And what I found also is a couple of them are sort of like play both sides of the business, where they started out selling data, and then along the way they must have kind of figured out like, oh, we can open up a data deletion service at the same time too.
Yeah.
And but one of the things you talked about that you offer, so you're on the B2B side. So this is perfect for consumers. So everybody that's an Efani customer, anybody that's privacy conscious, you got to take a look at Optery, and that's for the consumer base. But I also talked to C-suites, and so they're starting to incorporate executive protection type solutions, and that includes a data deletion service. So can you tell us a little bit about what companies are telling you and why they're signing up for Optery?
You touched on executive protection, and that's certainly a bit of it. I think the other thing, which is really, I think, exciting, good just for everyone, is that it's coming from the cybersecurity team. So if we step back and think about data breaches, right, the number one cause of data breaches are social engineering attacks. Those are those emails that are purporting to be someone else, and they have a link, and that link usually leads to malware, and that's going to breach credentials, hack into someone's system, and et cetera. Right. So those social engineering attacks are the leading cause of data breaches. So, well, how do I start a social engineering attack? First, I need to know where you work. I can find that on LinkedIn. That's public. Okay, fine. Maybe other places as well. Then I need to know how to contact you. And that's where these data brokers that we've been talking about come into play. The data brokers will have your work email, your work phone, and in many cases, right, you use your same phone or same computer even sometimes for personal and for work. So that personal phone number of yours is a gateway for an enterprise into their systems. If I compromise that personal device through a text through the personal phone number, I can then access company systems, and data breach occurs. So what a lot of CISOs are beginning to do is saying, hey, like, I have a lot of these programs to help against data breaches, and they need to leave those, all those sort of monitoring and remediation tools in place. But let's start playing offense. Let's make it not so easy as a Google search for these threat actors to start the social engineering attacks. So we'll work with companies and really do a risk assessment to say, okay, which employees, if their credentials were compromised, would be the biggest risk for the company, right? So, like for a tech company, it's engineers who have access to source code, as an example. For all companies, really, their finance teams is a target, right? There was that story of that. There's this person who's now in jail. He stole millions from Meta and from Google Alphabet by sending them fake invoices, and he went on many months and got millions of dollars, right, by getting those paid. So the finance team is a target, the HR team is a target. So we're working with businesses to begin securing their employees, and it's one of those rare things, which certainly makes me feel good as terms of what I do for a living, where hey, the company's asking you to do something, and it's good for the company because it's going to reduce the risk around social engineering, but it's also good for the individual, right? Because the individual gets the protection of their privacy, reducing their risk of harassment and doxing and so forth. So one of those nice win-wins. But yeah, we're seeing a lot more of that coming from the CISOs and the security organizations wanting to protect more than just their execs.
Okay. Now let's say somebody's watching this and they're like, okay, great. I want to sign this. So they go to optery.com and they pay whatever the bill. What's the process for them actually getting this set up? And could you take us through just a sample of, and then also a business?
Yeah. So for a consumer, right, basically you go to Optery and you can sign up free. So we have a free account, and basically you'll sign up, create an account. We ask for the minimum number of information from our customers. So we need your first name, your last name, your current city, current state, and your birth, not your full birth date. And with that information, we'll then begin scanning hundreds of data broker websites to search for your profile. So the platform then will show you results in terms of where exactly we found your profile, a link to the profile, as well as a screenshot. So and that happens usually within a couple hours of you signing up. You'll get that report delivered to your inbox. Like, here's where Optery found your data. And then for free, that's what you get is we find where you're exposed, and we even offer you guides and resources. We have a data broker directory that'll tell you, if you'd like to get your data removed yourself, here's exactly the steps you need to do with each of these data brokers to get your data removed. If you want to go to one of our paid offerings, we have different tiers, which basically look at, different amount of data broker sites and do things that look at name variations and, back up our automations with human privacy agent support on our higher tiered plans. But if you get on one of those paid plans, then we'll begin submitting those opt-out requests. And as a consumer, usually within hours, you'll begin seeing some of your opt-outs right there in the platform that, okay, my data was there and now it's no longer there. And certainly other ones take longer. It's just really the brokers that, they control how long it takes, unfortunately, but there are some that process it quickly and some that take a long time. But usually consumers start seeing results really the same day.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. So when I pay, how much time do I have to invest in loading my information? Is there a lot would need about me?
Yeah, we look minimize. So let's take the worst case. Like John Smith is the most common name in the U.S., right? So if I search for John Smith in Los Angeles, California, there's going to be tens and tens of thousands of results. So the year of birth is important because that helps us narrow it down. Okay, this is the John in Los Angeles who was of this age. And so that's why we need that minimum information. But certainly, you can add things like your addresses, multiple email addresses, multiple phone numbers, because or if you have multiple home addresses, right, you have multiple residencies. So the data brokers will have profiles against all of those things. So you can enter all of those into the platform if you want to, and that'll just help us find more of your information to remove. And that's all we use it for. We don't have any other side business. We don't have any hidden terms that say we're going to sell your data. But yeah, that's the amount of data. It takes maybe 5 minutes, as much as it takes you to remember your address, and maybe you have to look up your old address if you moved a while ago, but you can always go back and do it later. So it takes 5 minutes, and you kind of set and forget. You don't have to ever log into Optery again. We'll always be there protecting your data. We'll email you summaries of what we're doing, but certainly if you want to be very hands-on and looking at what you're doing, you can always log back in. But yeah, 5 minutes is all it takes.
Okay. And then for the business side of things, do you are businesses typically like self-serve? They come on your website and they can buy without even having to talk to somebody, or is there whether you're setting up like a corporate account?
Yeah, we like to meet our customers where they want. So you Optery for Business on a credit card and never ever talk to anyone on our sales team. The pricing is transparent on the website, built-in volume discounts if you never even talk to sales. And But if you want to talk sales, and we work with really large enterprises, like Fortune 100 companies. We've done infosec reviews with their cybersecurity teams, and and so forth. We have a team, and you can go right to our website and say talk to sales, and you immediately will get a link to book a meeting with one of our sales team members. So we meet our customers where they want. If they want to never talk to us and protect their business, great. But we're here to help if you want to talk to our sales team and learn more.
Okay. And is there anything else that we may have missed, or a question you wish people that you get answers, or just one last shot at providing some answers?
I think we hit on before. I think the need for this as an service. There's people that will sign up and they'll get it for a few months and they'll see some great progress, and they might think that okay, and they will be okay for a short period of time. The data comes back, so it's something. It's just it's sort of like saying like, hey, I have antivirus. Oh, well, I didn't find a virus. Am I going to now uninstall my antivirus? It's really that is no, obviously. And really, you have to think of protecting your personal data the same way. You don't just wipe it out once and be done with it. Constantly moving ecosystem of personal data on the internet, and have something in place that's for it. And that data is just only moving faster with the advent of generative AI, right? So have a tool in place that can move just as quickly to remove that data.
Yeah, AI is a whole nother crazy thing. One other question that occurred to me is that do you sell primarily to the US market? Is it the US market where it's this data is an issue, or are you selling to globally?
Yeah, good question. It is a global problem. It is most acute in the US. The market for personal data is just it's the most developed and most profitable in the US. So we are on the consumer side. We are currently only in the US. On the B2B side, we're primarily focused on the US, and we protect companies, global companies. So if they have people that are based in other countries, we will protect them as well. But we're actively, focused on the US market.
All right, awesome. Well, this would be a great spot to insert the promo code for Optery. I'll have it up here in the middle above us. Efani plus Optery, having a secure mobile service along with the data deletion, is a pretty powerful combination. And so I'd like to recommend to viewers to set up both of those. But if you don't get Efani, I would recommend going with Optery. So, well, Paul, it was great having you on. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be interested in this, and I'm glad you guys exist. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mark. And yeah, we're glad to have partners such as yourself who are also helping, get the message out about privacy and security. So thank you for what you do.
All right. Thanks a lot.